Alright, in this video, we're going to talk about the graphing the sinusoidal functions. So remember the A, B, C, D, location, okay? Now here, I just want to emphasize about how do we know about the horizontal move? It's controlled by the X. So when you see a parenthesis, you know that something is happening to the left or to the right. I'm going to move my curve, okay? In class, I mentioned about we would like to keep the negative, as you can see here, is a x minus. Then how do I know it's to the left or to the right? Now remember, seeing is believing, as I know, okay? Minus 2, the 2 is positive, so it's to the right. Move the picture to the right. Plus 2, that tells you that will be to the left. In class, I mentioned about because the formula is x minus. So how do I see the plus 2? It's to the left. Now think about that. If I keep the x minus, you can say that, Ms. Ong, distribution, negative and negative become positive. You are correct. So when you see this guy, negative, that become positive too. So you need to think about that. If I write it out as the x minus negative 2, the negative 2 just tells me it's to the left. Okay, so the negative 2 just to the left. And that's it. All right, A, B, C, D. So example 1, as you can see, is kind of like a game. Activate your eagle eye. The location A is 2 chat, and then the B value is 4 chat, and the D value it is 1. Now always remember, B controls the period, but not the period. So you need to do the calculation. So 360 degree. Now we mentioned about how do you know it's in degree, because it's given. The domain tells me it's in degree. So I'm going to use the 360 divided by B value to give me the period of the graph will be 90. So it's so good. And the D tells me it's my principal axis. So because I know about my amplitude, so the maximum how high I can go just equal to what? 1 plus 2, that's equal to 3. And minimum is how low I can go from the midline, right? So that will be 1 minus 2. That's how we get negative 1. So the domain is all about the x value. We know that's given. And the range technically is from my minimum to maximum. That's good. And then we talk about that if when we try to graph that, we want to make it look good. And how do we graph that? We're going to use the parents function as a comparison. So the parents function is very useful. Good. So now, the way I start it is I always want to mark my principal axis. So this is why I always tell myself go from the principal axis. So as you can see here, I'm going to make my principal axis first step. After my principal axis, I'm going to mark my maximum. So the maximum will be 3. And the minimum will be negative 1, then you will say that, Ms. Oh, how do you know? Now think about we are graphing for the psi function. The psi function from my parents function, I start from the midline, okay? So start from the midline. And since we already know my period is 90, so I'm going to cut it into 4 sections, right? So I'm going to moving up to my maximum and moving down to the other direction and keep all the way to my minimum and then back to my midline. So ooh la la, we got a nice curve. Since our domain is all the way to 360, so you just need to repeat the curve. And therefore, be patient and enjoy the beautiful of the curve. And that's it. Good. So one thing you know that it is, do we have any y-intercept? Yes. Since I move my principal axis, so now seeing is believing my y-intercept is at x0, 1, and that's what we see. Good. Compared to my parents' function, my y-intercept is right here at the 0, 0. Good. All right. The next one, example 2, again, do not overthink. X, Y, that will be the same thing as what we mentioned about in the ABCD, okay? So we are still dealing with the psi function. As you can see here, the parents function will be the starting from the midline, okay, going up, back, down, okay? So now my A value is 3, my B value, it is 2. Now again, B value controls the period, but not the period. I need to do some calculation to figure this out. So now I figured out my period for this function is 180 degrees. All right, you do not see any value D, but with your eagle eye, you know that it will be my 0, aka the original, the x-axis, right? So what will be my maximum? Knowing the amplitude, that will become my 0 plus 3 is 3, and 0 minus 3 is negative 3. So now we know that. Well, you do know that there is a parenthesis x minus 45. So we talk about minus tells me everything about my picture is going to the right side 45 degrees. So far so good now? And therefore, we're going to graph that. In classroom, I mentioned about that. I like to start with the original. So the original means it's a psi function. So the original psi function, as I knowing my period is 180, I'm going to cut it into 4 sections, right? So from 180, I know my psi function should start from 0 to my maximum and back down to, so this is my original, okay? And then going back to my minimum and back to my midline. So this was my original graph. But now what happened? Now every point had to move to the right side 45 degrees. Now luckily you see how I made my scale. So if the original point was right here, but now I need to move the point to 45 degrees. Good. And the original point was here, but I need to move to the right side 45 degrees. So therefore, by the counting, it's right here. Original point was right here, but now I need to move that to here. Original was right here, but I need to move that to the right side 45 degrees. So pretty much you got the idea. Everything will move to the right side 45 degrees. So I just keep my point moving. So that's good. Now you may say that, Mazon, then why you still need to have the graph go all the way down to the negative? So my domain is from 0 degree, right? So again, if I extend my graph, it shall go down as the curve extends. So therefore, the complete graph for this guy will be the red line, which will be the perfect answer indicate. Good. All right, let's talk about new one, which will be the cosine function. So again, activate the eagle eye. You know that my A value is 2 amplitude and my B value is 1/2, and I do have my principal axis, the midline, it's at -1. And yes, indeed, inside the parenthesis, minus 60, that tells me horizontal move, everybody move to the right 60 degree. So now, I mentioned about that, we like to start with the original graph. So again, because this is a cosine function, cosine start at the maximum. So the original, see that? I always keep my principal axis, the midline first, so the D equal to -1. Original, you know that I had to, when x equal to 0, it had to start from my maximum. Because knowing my period, it is 720, so inside of 720, I'm going to cut that into 4 sections, okay? So original function had to start from the maximum, and then what? Going down, and then what? And then back to what? my maximum. So this will be something we call that, hey, when there is a picture, the answer is in the picture. So now, knowing this one, you know that since everybody need to move to the right side 60, so now you see how I cut the information. When I graph that, we divide the 4 section, 180, and I know 180 can divide by 3, so now each one will be a 60. So that's why I made a 60 by the counting. So the maximum is no longer at 0 when x equal to 0, but is at the x equal to 60. So I just need to keep each of my point keep moving. So this point is moving 60 to the right side. This original point is moving 60 to the right side, and this original point is moving 60 to the right side, and this original point is moving to the right side 60 degrees. So now, seeing is believing. You know that means, oh, my final answer, it is this nice curve, and you are correct. So the red one become my final graph. And seeing is believing, okay? So please drill through this and have some fun. The curve is nicely done, but you need to see the beautiful of we do math by hand, and how awesome is that? That's all. Thank you.